Hello, I'm Elise Vance, the author of the channel Borrowed Lives, and I offer you fascinating stories. Like and subscribe to my channel.
When standard medical residency matches opened, everyone crowded around my 22-year-old fraternal twin sister, Chloe Bennett. Our older brother, Julian Bennett, a senior surgical resident, pointed at the top clinic on the roster. Obviously, you're applying to St. Jude Metropolitan Hospital. You'll be interning on my floor, and I'll make sure you get the best rotations. Our childhood neighbor, Marcus Vance, slid another brochure across the counter. Ignore him. Come to Westlake Medical Center instead. It's right here in Seattle, and we can keep our group together for another 4 years. Mom and Dad nodded in eager unison. Staying in Seattle is perfect. You'll have a protective net there, Chloe, and we won't have to worry. Only after several minutes did someone remember I had passed the USMLE licensing exams too. Your scores weren't quite at Chloe's level, Dad remarked without looking up from his tablet. Just take any secondary clinic in Seattle. That way, all 4 of us stay in the same district and can host Sunday dinners. Marcus let out a restless sigh. There's only 20 minutes before the portal closes. Don't procrastinate and mess up your submission like usual, Nora. I tightened my grip on my tablet. Growing up in our neighborhood, Chloe was always the fragile prodigy everyone rushed to shield. Julian was the protective older brother willing to fight anyone for her, while Marcus was the loyal best friend who would cross the country just to keep her smiling. I was always relegated to the background, the cold, demanding sister no one really cared to understand. Reaching adulthood hadn't changed the dynamic at all. If no one wanted me in their circle, I would choose a path as far away as possible. From now on, oceans and mountain ranges would lie between us. When I hesitated, Marcus pressed on. Chloe already submitted for St. Jude, and I'm putting my application there too. Hurry up and pick a Seattle clinic, Nora. I stared at the numbers on my screen. 268. A top-tier percentile. I hadn't felt a single spark of joy when I received it earlier, even though I had vastly outperformed my prep scores. The 2 prestigious university hospitals they had been debating for Chloe? I qualified for both with ease. I couldn't help asking Marcus, you used to say Westlake Medical was your lifelong dream program. Are you really throwing that away? Marcus froze for a second, then scoffed as if the question were absurd. What's the difference between Westlake and St. Jude? What matters is where Chloe feels comfortable. He had told me dozens of times during med school that Westlake was his ultimate goal. Yet one sentence from Chloe was all it took for him to abandon it. Suddenly, any lingering nostalgia I felt for our friendship dissolved entirely. Silently, I scrolled to the very top of the nationwide directory and typed into the search field, Oak Haven General Hospital. It was a regional trauma center on the opposite coast in Miami, more than 2,000 miles away. Click Submit. Confirm. Done. After we completed our resident submissions, Mom and Dad handed Chloe and me sealed envelopes containing financial gifts. The moment Chloe opened hers, she threw her arms around Mom's neck with a brilliant smile. I knew you were rooting for me the most, Mom. Then, out of habit, she turned to me. How much did Dad send you? I checked the banking app notification and answered flatly. $300. Chloe's eyes flickered, but she immediately put on her gentle, caring facade. Mom and Dad were probably just worried you'd make impulsive purchases, Nora, so they transferred the remaining $15,000 to my account for safekeeping. If you need new scrubs or textbooks later, just ask me. Mom patted her cheek lovingly. That money is your reward for scoring 235 on your licensing exams, sweetheart. Spend it however you like. She then turned a cold gaze toward me. As for you, Nora, I don't even want to discuss your average performance. You've always struggled to match your sister. Once your residency begins, you can't afford to be lazy. Chloe quickly grabbed Mom's arm, tugging it softly. Mom, stop. Nora did her best just to pass. You shouldn't be so hard on her. Julian walked into the living room holding 2 wrapped boxes. The elegant silver one was for Chloe. The plain brown one was handed to me. Inside mine was a basic plastic stethoscope. Before I could process it, Chloe squealed with excitement, opening her box to reveal a high-end, customized diagnostic ultrasound system. I knew you were the best brother ever, Julian. Chloe cheered. Marcus looked on in surprise. That kit costs over $3,500 online. Did you use your entire quarter's research stipend for that? Julian ruffled Chloe's hair affectionately. Nothing is too expensive for my little sister. I was his sister, too. So why was my gift a cheap placeholder while hers was professional equipment? I used to ask those questions out loud when I was younger, until I realized no answer would ever make it hurt less. Now, I didn't even care to ask. I placed the stethoscope back in its cardboard packaging, stood up, and headed toward my room. Nobody cared that I was leaving the circle until Chloe called after me. Nora, is everything okay? I paused at the doorway. I'm tired. Behind me, Julian's annoyed voice cut through the room. That's just how she is. Always dragging the mood down with that sullen attitude. Chloe, stop worrying about her and go test your new equipment. Marcus chimed in with a dry laugh. Yeah, Nora's always been distant like that. Total party pooper. I shut my bedroom door, cutting off their voices completely. The next time I came out was for dinner. Mom had prepared a heavy spread, garlic butter shrimp, clam chowder, and lemon tart. One look at the table said everything. Every single dish was tailored to Chloe's specific taste buds, while I was severely lactose intolerant and preferred simple, grilled meals. After years of staying quiet, I finally spoke up. Mom, could we ever have grilled salmon or something without dairy? Mom paused, her fork hovering in midair before she frowned deeply. It was one thing when you were a fussy child, Nora. Why are you still so difficult now that you're an adult? Why can't you be more adaptable like Chloe? She never complains about what's served. I wanted to point out that Chloe never complained because Mom only ever cooked Chloe's favorite meals. But the words died in my throat. What was the point? She would only call me ungrateful and dramatic. After that quiet dinner, Marcus arrived at our front door carrying 2 iced espresso drinks from the coffee shop down the street. One was for Chloe, the other for me. Chloe took a long sip and smiled warmly at him. You always know what I need, Marcus. On a hot summer night like this, cold coffee is absolute perfection. I wrapped my fingers around the plastic cup, feeling the chill spread through my hands. Before Marcus met Chloe during our prep courses, he had once confided in me about his older brother, someone so talented and revered that Marcus always felt invisible in his own family. Back then, I foolishly thought we shared a deep, mutual understanding. But after Chloe entered the picture, Marcus told me outright, Chloe just has a way of connecting with people that you don't. Even so, I had held onto a thread of affection for him because he was the only one who still remembered to include me. Whenever he bought a gift, he always bought 2, one for Chloe, one for me. But over time, those thoughtful gestures shifted. There were still 2 items, but both were chosen exclusively around Chloe's preferences. Nora, what are you waiting for? Drink it before the ice melts, Marcus urged casually, his eyes never straying from Chloe's face. I looked down at the dark liquid in my hands. Marcus, I have severe lactose intolerance, and espresso triggers my reflux. I can't drink heavy dairy drinks. A brief silence fell over the hallway. Marcus frowned, trying to recall. Wait, really? I could have sworn I saw you drink iced lattes before. Besides, every cafe defaults to whole milk unless specified. Do you always have to make things complicated? The incident he was misremembering was from 2 years ago, when he accidentally handed me a dairy drink that left me ill for days. He had apologized profusely back then, promising he would always remember my dietary needs from that day on. Apparently, from that day on had expired long ago. Julian scoffed coldly from the couch. Nora, are you seriously finding another reason to ruin the evening? I lowered my eyes, a quiet sense of relief washing over me. For the first time, I was genuinely grateful I hadn't selected a hospital program in Seattle. Otherwise, I would have faced 4 more years of this constant erasure, 4 more years of being blamed for simply existing. The following morning, Mom and Dad were preparing to head to the Bellevue Grand Ballroom to finalize reservations for Chloe's upcoming medical graduation gala. Downstairs in the underground garage, I stood awkwardly near the passenger side of the family SUV. The muggy August heat made the concrete air feel heavy and suffocating. Dad unlocked the doors and looked at me impatiently. Why are you standing there? Get in. "There's no room for me," I said quietly. His eyebrows knit together in annoyance. "You're an adult, Nora. Can't you just squeeze in?" Mom leaned out from the front passenger window. "Chloe gets motion sickness easily, so she has to sit up front. Don't be unreasonable." Chloe was already adjusting her sunglasses comfortably in the front passenger seat. Mom occupied the right side of the back seat, Julian took the left, and Marcus sat in the middle holding Chloe's new diagnostic equipment case. There was literally no physical space left for me. If I forced myself inside, I would be pressed against the door like an unwanted extra. "I'll just take the subway," I said, stepping back. "You guys go ahead." Before I could finish my sentence, Dad shifted into drive and accelerated down the ramp. The exhaust fumes lingered in the warm air as I stood there alone. I walked back upstairs, went into the kitchen, and prepared a simple bowl of spicy noodles, extra chili flakes, hot enough to make my eyes water. It tasted infinitely better than anything served at dinner the night before. While I was washing my bowl, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a voice note from Mom. In the background, I could hear clinking glasses and laughter from the venue staff. "Nora, where are you? Order a rideshare and get over here right now. Don't make the venue coordinator wait on us." I stared at the screen for a moment, deciding whether to block her right then. In the end, I typed 2 short words, "Not coming." Back in my room, I began packing my belongings. I only selected clothing suitable for the current season. I could purchase winter coats once I settled in Miami. Everything else, including the cheap plastic stethoscope, was left behind on my desk. Then I opened my small personal safe. Inside, there was only $40 in cash remaining. The major funds were gone. I searched every drawer and shelf in my room. Nothing. Where had my savings gone? Just as panic began to set in, my bedroom door swung open. Chloe walked in, proudly raising her wrist to show off an intricate diamond-encrusted platinum watch catching the light. "Isn't it gorgeous?" Mom bought it for me to celebrate my medical degree. It was so expensive, $8,000. The exact amount missing from my personal fund was $8,000. I turned to Mom, who was standing in the doorway in complete disbelief. "You took my money?" Mom immediately snapped back, her voice sharp and defensive. "What do you mean, your money? You live under our roof, eat our food, and now you're accusing me of wronging you? I raised you for 22 years for nothing." "That's entirely different," I countered, my voice rising. "If our family was facing a financial emergency, I would have handed over every cent without hesitation. But you took my personal savings for something Chloe didn't even need. Taking someone else's money without permission is theft." Julian bolted up from the hallway, his boots heavy on the floorboards. "Watch your mouth, Nora. Calling our mother a thief? What is wrong with you?" Marcus frowned, stepping in with his usual condescending tone. "Nora, you're completely overreacting. Who uses words like theft when it comes to family? Mrs. Bennett probably just thought it wasn't wise for a student to keep that much cash stored in a room. Besides, Chloe matched at St. Jude. As her sister, it's only right that you contribute to celebrating her milestone. That money was mine," I shouted, my eyes burning. Birthday checks, summer internship stipends, and holiday gifts saved over 6 years. I worked extra night shifts at the campus library, saved every dollar, and never spent a dime on luxuries. "Give it back." Mom looked away with a brief flicker of guilt, but quickly replaced it with cold indignance. "The transaction is already complete. High-end jewelers don't accept returns once a piece is custom-fitted. Besides, with your average performance, what right do you have to hoard that much cash anyway?" Chloe pulled gently on Mom's sleeve, her eyes brimming with tearful innocence. "Mom, please don't fight with Nora because of me. Maybe we can pawn the watch. I can try to cover the rest with my allowance." She offered to return it, yet her fingers clutched the watch tightly against her chest, showing no intention of letting go. Mom immediately shielded her. "Nora, you have completely lost control of yourself. Go to your room and reflect on your behavior. You're not stepping out until you calm down." Julian stepped forward and grabbed my arm, forcing me back into my room. "No, I didn't do anything wrong." I struggled against his grip, but it was useless against a full-grown man. The heavy wooden door slammed shut, and the lock clicked from the outside. I slid down against the door frame, sitting on the cold floor. Through the wood, I could hear their muffled voices comforting each other, saying Mom had done nothing wrong, that Chloe was innocent, and that I was simply a selfish, bitter sister who ruined every family moment. For the next week, the house operated under a heavy silence intended to discipline me. Nobody called me for meals, nobody informed me of family plans, and nobody asked how I was spending my days. They believed this isolation would break my resolve and force an apology. But having lived on the periphery of their lives for years, the quiet was hardly a punishment, it was an environment I already understood. With 3 weeks remaining before residency programs officially commenced, I took an evening shift as a medical lab clerk down the street. No one tracked when I left the house or when I returned, and no one paid enough attention to notice the subtle ways I was erasing my presence from the residence. My undergraduate medical textbooks and binders were taken to a local community recycling drive. The study guides Marcus had shared with me over the years, along with the references he had gifted me, were donated to first-year medical students at a regional public college. When my official acceptance package finally arrived, I took one last walk through the house. When I was 10, I had been moved out of the main upstairs bedroom into a small converted pantry on the ground floor because Chloe required a dedicated studio space for her violin practice. The hallway walls were lined with framed honors and certificates belonging to Chloe. Mine had been folded and placed under the short leg of a garage workbench to stop it from wobbling. Packing the few personal items I still owned, I ordered a rideshare directly to the intercity train station. My phone vibrated repeatedly in my pocket during the drive. They were likely calling to ask why I wasn't at the Bellevue Grand Ballroom, where Chloe's graduation gala was underway. I let every call go to voicemail. That celebration was constructed for a single individual, and I had no interest in standing near the entrance as an awkward footnote while relatives offered congratulations, only for someone to eventually remember my existence and offer a polite, passing remark. I blocked their numbers one by one, then boarded the express train heading south. The train departed the station at 6:15 p.m. There was no family waiting on the platform, no lingering goodbyes, and no one calling my name. At first, everything proceeded precisely as planned. Chloe stood beneath the venue lights in an ivory dress, the $8,000 platinum watch gleaming on her wrist. Mom adjusted her daughter's stole with visible pride, while Dad offered a glowing speech about Chloe's dedication to medicine. Julian made a public promise to oversee her rotations at St. Jude, and Marcus smiled as if attending St. Jude had always been his ambition. Then, the Associate Dean of Student Affairs from our university arrived at the reception. Holding 2 official parchment envelopes, he scanned the room with a look of quiet confusion. "Where's Nora?" Mom's expression stiffened for a second. Oh, Nora matched as well. "She's just being difficult tonight and decided not to attend." The dean frowned, his tone shifting. "Difficult? I came specifically to offer my personal congratulations." Nora scored a 268 on her USMLE exams, the highest score in this year's graduating class. Oak Haven General offered her a full merit residency fellowship. A heavy silence descended upon the head table. Chloe's smile froze. Mom blinked blankly, as if struggling to process the statement, while Dad slowly set his glass down on the table. A relative seated nearby repeated the number aloud. 268? That's exceptional. Another voice murmured from the adjacent table, "Wait, isn't that higher than Chloe's score? Then why was Chloe given the $15,000 celebration reward?" Mom forced a tight, rigid smile. "There must be a recording error." Nora's score was average. The dean unsealed the folder, presenting the official record transcript. No error. Nora Bennett, 268. We verified the results with the national board this morning. We assumed the family was already aware. That single sentence shattered the carefully constructed narrative in the room. They should have known. They should have known long before the dean spoke, before the guests, and before the entire ballroom discovered my score while I was sitting on an interstate train with $40 to my name. Dad immediately pulled out his phone to dial my number. Blocked. Julian tried next. Blocked. Marcus stared at his screen in disbelief as my contact icon vanished from his messaging application. At that exact moment, a scheduled automated message I had drafted earlier landed directly in the family group chat. Chloe received $15,000 for a 235 score. Julian's professional gift, Marcus's complete devotion. Mom's custom meals, Dad's reserved car seat, and my $8,000 life savings. I received $300 and a locked door. I hope that custom watch was worth it, because it is the absolute last thing any of you will ever take from me. Attached below the text were 3 high-resolution photographs. My emptied personal safe, with a single $40 bill remaining inside. Chloe's new watch resting on her wrist, and the cheap plastic stethoscope sitting untouched on my empty desk. The silence in the ballroom no longer belonged to my quiet submission. It belonged to their humiliation. Aunt Catherine was the first to speak aloud, her voice echoing in the quiet hall. What does she mean by her $8,000 savings? Mom's face paled, her tone turning defensive. She's exaggerating. It was family money. The dean glanced down at Chloe's wrist, his gaze lingering on the platinum watch. Everyone else in the room followed his eyes. A cousin leaned over to ask loudly, "Is that the watch?" Chloe instinctively pulled her sleeve down over her wrist, but the reaction only solidified the room's suspicion. It was a gift. Mom insisted, stepping in front of her daughter. Aunt Catherine's voice sharpened. Purchased with Nora's savings? We raise our children under one roof. Money in this house is. Birthday checks and internship stipends earned by a student are not family funds, an older uncle interrupted, his expression full of distaste. Chloe's eyes filled with tears as she looked around the room. I didn't know. I really didn't know. A family friend near the front spoke up. Then why didn't you take it off and return it when she asked for her money back? Chloe opened her mouth, but no convincing answer came out. For the first time, her tears didn't bring an army of defenders to her side. Julian slammed his hand onto the table, his face flushed with anger. Enough. Nora is twisting facts to make us look bad. The dean looked directly at Julian. Is it true she was locked in her room? Julian's jaw tightened, his words catching in his throat. You locked your sister in her room because she demanded her own savings back, a guest whispered from a neighboring table. She was out of control. Julian barked back, but his authoritative image as a protective older brother crumbled instantly. There was no way to reframe the situation without admitting he had used physical force against his own sister. Marcus tried to intervene, his voice nervous. Look, this is an internal family issue. Nora has always been sensitive and quick to misinterpret things. The dean turned toward him. You're Marcus Vance, correct? Nora mentioned during her rotations that you used to study together. She held your work ethic in high regard. The phrase used to hit Marcus harder than a direct insult. His face drained of color as memories probably surfaced, the late-night study sessions, the shared notes, and the promises to support each other through residency. A classmate seated nearby spoke up quietly. Isn't Marcus the one who brought her dairy drinks last week? The rumor spread quickly through the table. Nora is severely lactose intolerant. Marcus opened his mouth to defend himself, but no words came. The truth was indefensible. The gala continued in form, but its spirit was ruined. The classical music kept playing and servers continued delivering dishes tailored to Chloe's taste, but the celebration felt hollow. Every luxury in the room suddenly looked like evidence of theft: the catering, the watch, the diagnostic kit, and the empty space where the top scorer of the class should have been standing. Chloe spent the rest of the evening crying in the lounge because people were looking at her with judgment instead of admiration. Mom wept openly because her status as a perfect mother was destroyed in front of her peers. Dad tried to offer a closing toast to smooth things over, but nobody applauded. Marcus left the venue early. He went straight to our house, driven by a sudden wave of panic. I learned this 3 days later when he sent an email from a secondary address, having realized his main contact was blocked. I went to your room. All the study guides and reference books are gone. Julian said you gave them away. Did you really donate all my notes to strangers? I didn't reply that day. By then, I had already arrived in Miami. The train pulled into the Miami coastal terminal at 10:15 the following morning. I stepped onto the humid platform with tired legs and a dry throat, having survived on bottled water and crackers since midnight. Ocean air, thick with salt and sunshine, greeted me as I stepped outside. The campus shuttle driver double-checked his clipboard when he saw how little luggage I carried. Incoming resident? I nodded. Nora Bennett. Surgery department. Where's your family? Most residents bring a whole support crew to help set up. The question felt like it should sting, but it didn't. Far away, I replied simply. He accepted the answer without pressing further and loaded my single suitcase. Oak Haven General was vast, modern glass structures surrounded by palm trees, bustling with attending physicians, nurses, and incoming residents moving between buildings with boxes and garment bags. Parents were busy helping their adult children unpack, offering last-minute advice or wiping away tearful goodbyes. I watched them for a brief second, then turned and walked into the administration building. At the residency office, the administrator checked my documentation and smiled warmly. Nora Bennett. We've been eager to meet our top scorer. A 268 on the USMLE is incredible. The number sounded entirely different coming from her, not a secret to be hidden, not a mistake to be downplayed, but an achievement recognized on its own merit. Your merit fellowship covers your stipend and housing allowance, she continued smoothly. We also have wellness resources and an emergency support fund for residents if you ever encounter unexpected expenses. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate. No one in Seattle had ever offered me support without making me feel like a burden first. My assigned apartment was on the top floor of the resident housing complex. It was bright and minimal, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Palm Court. 2 study desks, 2 closets, 2 beds. For the first time in my life, a living space didn't feel preclaimed by Chloe. As I set my bag down, the door opened and a girl with tall dark curls stepped inside carrying a box of medical manuals. Hey, you must be Nora. I'm Elena. Hi, Elena. She set her box down, popped open a small cooler, and pulled out an iced fruit smoothie. Want one? Wait, any dietary restrictions or food allergies? The casual nature of the question caught me off guard. Severe lactose intolerance, I answered, my voice slightly uneven. Got it. Elena pulled a thick black marker from her bag, walked straight to the communal fridge, and wrote in bold letters on the whiteboard door, "No dairy. Nora lives here." I stared at the board for a few seconds. Elena glanced back, tilting her head. Too aggressive? No, I whispered, holding back a sudden rush of emotion. It's perfect. That evening, Elena dragged me down to the hospital cafeteria. I stood frozen before the wide selection of food stations, paralyzed by options that hadn't been filtered through someone else's preferences first. A cafeteria chef noticed me hesitating. Looking for something specific, Doc? Anything spicy or dairy-free? I asked tentatively. His face lit up. Finally, someone with real taste. Try the spicy Cajun grilled chicken. I ate the entire portion while Elena watched in amusement. So, is this your favorite food? It's what food tastes like when nobody calls me difficult for ordering it, I said softly. Elena went quiet, then slid her water glass toward me. Drink up. You look like you're about to get sentimental over chicken, and it doesn't deserve that kind of drama. I laughed, a genuine, unforced sound that felt unfamiliar, yet entirely right. Back home in Seattle, panic fully set in once anger failed to yield results. Mom tried calling from unfamiliar phone numbers, Dad sent several lengthy emails, and Julian attempted to transfer funds via payment apps. Marcus reached out repeatedly through my academic email portal. I ignored every attempt. Almost every attempt. Marcus's email stayed in my inbox a little longer than the rest. Did you really donate all my notes? I don't understand why you're doing this. I finally typed out a brief reply after a week. They were given to someone who actually needed them. You stopped seeing my presence years ago. His reply arrived within minutes. Nora, I'm so sorry. I forgot about the dairy issue. I don't know how I forgot. I swear I knew. I swear I cared about our friendship. I stared at the glowing screen, then responded. You remembered every single detail about Chloe's preferences. You forgot a medical restriction that could send me to the emergency room. That tells me everything about where I stood. He didn't reply for 2 full days. When he finally did, it was a single line. I gave up my dream program at Westlake for someone who never even asked me to stay. I closed the thread. His regret was not my responsibility to heal. 2 weeks later, a heavy package from Julian arrived at the resident mailroom, a top-of-the-line diagnostic system, the exact model he had bought for Chloe, right down to the custom metallic finish. The mailroom clerk handed it over with a whistle. Nice gear. Someone must really care about you. I looked at the sender name, Julian Bennett. I slid the box back across the counter without opening it. Return to sender. That night, I sent Julian one single email. You locked me in a room because I demanded what was mine. Don't stand outside my door now with expensive gifts and call yourself my brother. He sent 12 follow-up messages over the next few days. I read none of them. In October, Mom and Dad managed to reach me through the hospital's administrative channel, requesting a formal video call under the guise of an urgent family matter. Elena sat quietly on her bed while I took the call, not prying, just staying present so I wouldn't have to face it alone. Mom appeared on the screen first. Her face looked drawn, her eyes swollen. Dad sat beside her, rigid and noticeably silent. For the first time, neither of them looked distracted by Chloe's schedule. Nora, Mom began, her voice trembling. We didn't know your exam scores were that high. You never bothered to ask, I replied calmly. Dad flinched. We just assumed. You always seemed so self-sufficient. We thought you could handle things on your own. That wasn't independence, I said, looking straight into the camera. That was neglect. Mom broke down into tears. Your sister's milestone party was completely ruined. She's been hiding in her room for weeks because of what people are saying. No, I corrected her gently. I simply stopped standing in the dark corner of her celebration. That's all. That's cold, Nora, Dad muttered, his jaw tightening. Cold was leaving me in the garage because there wasn't a seat for me in the car, I replied. I left your home for the exact same reason. Dad turned his eyes away, unable to meet my gaze through the screen. Mom sobbed louder. Please come home for Thanksgiving. I'll make your favorite grilled meals, no dairy, anything you want. A small, sad smile touched my lips. 22 years, and my dietary needs only matter after I move 2,000 miles away. No, Mom. Nora, please. I need to put myself first now. I ended the call before they could turn my boundaries into another offense. Chloe reached out to me in November, using Marcus's old secondary email. I almost deleted it unopened, but the subject line caught my eye. You ruined everything. I opened it. Everyone looks at me differently now. Julian keeps staring at my watch like he regrets buying it. Marcus barely speaks to me anymore. Mom cries whenever residency comes up, and Dad won't even look at my graduation photos. Are you happy? You made my entire achievement about you. I typed my response without hesitation. I didn't make anything about me. I simply stopped being the quiet background character in your story. Her reply came back almost instantly. I never asked them to love me more than you. My fingers paused over the keyboard. That was the closest Chloe had ever come to admitting the truth. But acknowledgement without accountability meant nothing. You never asked them to, but you never once handed back what their favoritism stole from me either, I replied. She didn't answer for hours. Then came a short message. Do you want the watch back? I looked across the room at the whiteboard on the fridge. No dairy. Nora lives here. That simple note had cost nothing, yet it meant more than every dollar resting on Chloe's wrist. Keep it. Wear it. Let it remind you of what your privilege cost, I wrote back. She never emailed me again. Months turned into years. Miami became my home slowly, not because it was flawless, but because no one here had pre-written my identity. Elena became my closest friend, someone who never cast a Chloe-shaped shadow over my life. Chief Dr. Vance became my mentor, evaluating me solely on my surgical precision. On my 24th birthday, Elena baked dairy-free dark chocolate cupcakes, and our residency team threw a small surprise gathering in the break room. My phone buzzed once, an email from Marcus. Happy birthday. I stared at the notification for a moment, then moved it straight to the trash bin. Remembering after losing someone is not the same as valuing them while they were standing beside you. At the end of our residency program, Oak Haven General held a formal award ceremony. My name was announced for the Chief Resident Research Award. Elena cheered so loudly that the entire hall turned to look, and Dr. Vance presented me with a crystal plaque. No one from Seattle was in attendance. I hadn't invited them. After the ceremony, an unknown number sent a photo to my phone. It was from Julian. The image showed Mom, Dad, Chloe, and him sitting around our old dining table in Seattle. There was an empty chair left open at the head of the table. A follow-up text arrived a minute later. "We know we don't deserve to ask, but we wanted you to know there is always a place for you here now." I looked at the photo for a long time, then looked around at my life in Miami, Elena laughing with my colleagues, my mentor congratulating my work, and a room full of people who saw me clearly. There had always been room for me in the world, just not in that house. I typed my final response, "I'm glad you found a chair." I found a life, then I blocked the number permanently. Standing in the hospital lobby with my award plaque in hand, I didn't feel like the discarded twin, the difficult sister, or the forgotten friend anymore. I was simply Nora Bennett, a doctor who walked away with $40, a single acceptance letter, and built a life where her own name finally fit on the wall.